Our next question is, so we have talked about the different types of diffusion cell apparatus. And so if an IVRT study is conducted using, different apparatus, but under the matched method parameters, the conditions are the same. So would the drug release profile be the same? And, the same question for the IVPT study, if the conditions are the same, but the study conducted on different apparatus, would the drug permeation profile be the same? And are there any research that investigated this?
So I know that John and Kailas and Murthy have all actually conducted research to assess this. So would you all like to first comment?
I can start. So we did some work on metronidazole products. We set up an experiment to compare the results on a transdiffusion cell versus the flow-through diffusion cell. The transdiffusion cells were from Logan and flow-through was from Permigere. Then when we had like 3 products, one reference product, one generic, and there was a product which was entirely compositionally different from the RLD and the generic, which was expected to result in an entirely different permeation profile. As I think I answered this question in the previous session also, like we ended up getting the same results and same conclusion. So I think it does not matter which equipment you're using, as long as the experiments are planned well and everything is standardized and in place. Your end conclusion should not be different if you use different equipment.
So we did some work with the PV hydrocortisone cream, changing the different parameters within the vertical diffusion cells, only different cell volumes, different rates of exposure, and you will see some differences in the release profiles of hydrocortisone cream with the different parameters when you change the parameters.
Can I clarify? You mean
Go ahead.
Change the parameters? You mean change the apparatus or the condition of the study method?
The change the apparatus, the study method, IVRT method is the same, but if you have changes in volume of the cell, change in the orifice of the donor chamber, and also the cell changes in cell design, you will see some differences in the release profile.
Thank you.
To add to what Kailash said, when we did this experiment on metronidazole products, when we match the receiver volume, meaning that the receiver volume in the transdiffusion cell was 7 ml, and then we adjusted the flow rate in such a way that we collect the same volume at each time point on a flow-through diffusion cell. In that experiment, we ended up getting almost overlapping profile. Just want to make that point.
And I think another clarification is the work that Dr. Murthy is referring to was an IVPT study, and there were specific considerations done when the 2 apparatus were utilized to how to make the conditions for the static cell and the flow-through cell match in terms of the total sampling that the skin was experiencing in either system. So it's not the most intuitive. You actually really have to think through how to design the experiment so that those conditions are the same. And if you don't, then you will see some differences from apparatus to apparatus. And then Kailas Dr. Thakur was referring there to IVRT. And we've also looked at a variety of differences in fact, Permigere had designed a variety of different diffusion cells when we were writing the USP 1724 several years ago, so that we could understand the impact of these different things. And they do. You know, if you change the parameters of your diffusion cell, it can change the results, not the results, but the data in your IVRT. An equivalent product will still be equivalent.
Right.
And then, John, you were showing some data comparing your static and flow through cells, right?
Yeah, I mean, that data essentially kind of, I thought answered the question. I will say you can get usable, reliable data on essentially any of these apparatus. You just may have to fiddle with some of the conditions more. So the example where I showed that we weren't able to detect it with those hydrophobic compounds, that just says to me we're going to have to spend a lot more time on receptor solution. We just didn't have time to do it, so we moved on to flow through cells. So it's not to say it's not possible. It just helps you focus on where you need to spend that time, whether it's flow rate, whether it's receptor solution, and that depends whether it's IVRT or IVPT.
Thank you.
So
So our
I
next,
may add. So
go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I'll just add a little comment here. So understanding the diffusion mechanism from the dosage form here or the permeation mechanism through the skin is a key factor here of changing different apparatus for the same experiment, and really coming out with test conditions on both systems or three systems that is apple-to-apple comparison regarding hydrodynamics as well as concentration gradient between donor and receptor compartments, as well as sampling schedule, and excluding all the potential inter-operator variability into the system. Theoretically, it should give us comparable data, but if it is not controlled enough among any of these factors, then some variability maybe we may see it in the result. So I believe this is the baseline for comparison different systems to others. It is just bringing the diffusion parameters to be comparable apple to apple.